Train the muscles, not the joints.
Welcome back to Natural Land Bodybuilding Mountain. And today I'm going to talk about a comment that was made by somebody, and basically what this comment was is that they don't agree with pre-exhaustion of muscles, that progressive overload is all that matters, and so forth. And I'm going to say that is absolutely false. Again, I've talked about this a lot, but the obsession with one tool over another as being superior is going to hold you back. And progressive overload, people have to understand that when you apply that to a compound exercise, a lot of your strength gains are not necessarily increased ability for muscle contraction. A lot of it has to do with coordination, finding the perfect groove. So as much as that can be useful for manifesting more contraction in the muscle at some point, it is not the end-all be-all of natural bodybuilding. Natural bodybuilding is to push the muscle in many different ways in order to cause it to get stronger, bigger, and adapt. But it's not necessarily becoming a specialist in one exercise or another. You're not training just to increase in coordination. You're training to increase muscular size, which can be helped through coordination, but coordination isn't the main way you do this. So you'll see this a lot with some natural bodybuilders where they'll get really good at some lifts and purposely avoid other lifts because they don't look as impressive doing them, or they're not as strong in those lifts. And that can be a very big mistake. And another mistake, and this is the one I'm pinpointing to, is to avoid pre-exhaustion because somehow you are weaker when you do the compound lift. But you're not necessarily weaker. What you are is fatigued. And the whole point of natural bodybuilding is to fatigue the muscle so that it feels the need to adapt. And if you get too obsessed with progressive overload, sometimes what will happen is that you will stick to that main lift, such as, let's just say, bench presses, right? And you're like, oh, I used lighter weight on bench when I do pre-exhaustion, so I'm somehow losing strength. If you have that philosophy, what's going to happen is that you are going to constantly perform bench first and foremost, and yeah, your reps might go up, but what muscle is hitting failure? If it's your front delts that are hitting failure before your chest, or if it's your triceps that are hitting failure before your chest, you're never going to get the chest development that you are looking for, if that's what you're doing bench press for, right? So it only stands to reason that using pre-exhaustion type movements like dumbbell flies or dumbbell movements or some type of machine first and then going to bench can be a useful way of training here and there. It doesn't mean you have to do it all the time, but once in a while you have to let go of this progressive overload thing or this idea that I have to hit a certain number in a workout. You have to let go of that so that way you can hit proper exhaustion, because performance, as far as how many reps you get in a certain exercise, is not always indicative of muscular failure in a certain area, right? So that's why a lot of people walk around with, a lot of weak body parts. And it's not because of the, issues that I have with the dislocating shoulder and stuff. A lot of times they're walking around with weak body parts because they're thinking with their ego and what makes them feel good about themselves instead of what's actually working. So remember, everything's a tool, and if you're hitting muscular failure, or at least muscular fatigue within a minute to 2 minutes, you are going to be causing the body to adapt hypertrophically. And that's what this is all about. And of course, there's multiple other benefits as well, such as rehabilitative reasons that you might want to do different things, different ranges of motion, different angles of attack. That helps offset a lot of overuse injuries, because when you are obsessed with doing one movement and one movement only for a certain area, or constantly going up in strength, a lot of times you'll drive yourself into injury as well, because you're not creating balance. You're doing one plane of attack and not necessarily bringing balance to the overall area. And again, bench press is probably one of the worst things for this, because a lot of people get obsessed with specializing in bench pressing, and then of course they end up getting rotated shoulders that are forward. They don't necessarily stretch the pecs enough, or they don't necessarily work the rear delts enough or the upper back, and then they end up with shoulder injuries, right? So again, try not to obsess too much over progressive overload, as much as that is also a useful tool. And I think you'll have a much more balanced physique because of it. Mountain. I hope this helped you out in your training. Thanks a lot for watching. If you need to get a hold of me, just go to naturallandbodybuilding.com, and thanks to the Patreon supporters, and take care for now.